the SoFlo Rodeo?
SoFlo Rodeo is the student section for basketball at USF. It is the place to be every game day.
SoFlo Rodeo, for many people, it's a fan section. For us, it's a family. It's all the students. They love to get together. We have a blast. It's a great time. SoFlo is our family.
Describe the game day environment when you're a part of the SoFlo Rodeo.
The game day environment here, man, it's a party. Like, we just stay here, we stand up, we yell, we scream, we get hyped. It's just a party.
I mean, you're seeing some of it right behind me. SoFlo Rodeo is the most insane people I've ever seen. I've been to NFL games, hockey games, and SoFlo Rodeo puts them to work. We have a great fan section. They go crazy. I mean, you're hearing it right now. They're amazing people.
Part of the SoFlo Rodeo.
So they can become a part of the SoFlo Rodeo in a couple ways. Follow us on Instagram at SoFlo Rodeo. You can also connect with us on Bolts Connect, and you can just show up. We'll invite you in. You'll get, we always got food, shirts, merchandise. We always got something for you here. So anytime, you come find any of us and we'll invite you in.
Coach Lounge is always open an hour before game starts, and we just there, you show up, you be a part of it. That's all you gotta do, pretty easy. Favorite part's got to be the people here, the environment. It's just fun. It's awesome. It's an awesome place to be.
My favorite part about being with SoFlo Rodeo is that I get a place to let loose. I get a place to go crazy. And I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't that involved in school before this, and now I get to be a part of things, and I get to have like a lasting impression on the people around me. SoFlo Rodeo just gives me a place to have fun.
So, Amedeus and I now have the number 25 USF Bulls as our team marches on. That was fun. Thanks to the USF Athletics Department for providing that to us. Amedeus is kind of fun. You get to see the coach there hanging out with the group toward the end while the band was playing. So, the SoFlo Rodeo. Our shirts are on the way. They're back ordered, but they're coming. And we'll have them hopefully by tournament time.
That's what I love to see, because we've designated this is our team. This is the official team of
Right.
the show here, and absolutely, this is going to be our team to watch in the tournament. They belong in the tournament. Obviously, big news today. They're finally in the top 25 rankings, which is huge for them. And I don't know what else to say about this team. They just continue to impress. Once again, they're dogs at home yesterday, and they come through with a dominant win. And this team, you can just see the improvement, and you can see how they've gotten better throughout the entire year. Yeah, they had that rough start to the season, lost, for their first 6 games there. Obviously, really tough with the new head coach, brand new team roster, pretty much. But they quickly, they got things right by the end of non-conference schedule, and they've done nothing but blow teams out of the water now in the conference. And even the way they win these games, they were playing much closer games at the start of the conference schedule. Obviously, they've had a bunch of scares this year where they just keep fighting back and they never quit. And they've erased these huge double-digit deficits and come back to winning a lot of these games. But now you can really tell that they're just rolling in their last few games. They did what I asked a few weeks ago. I said, please stop giving heart attacks to us lovely supporters of your team. And ever since I said that, this team has rarely been down in a game they've played. Obviously, they had the scare with UTSA, but even on a day where they weren't at their best, they showed up in the clutch moments to get the job done. And that's what great teams do. And that's what you're seeing from here. You're really seeing the greatness in this team start to come out. And, like I said, the last few wins now have just been dominant start to finish.
Well, and yesterday, they had a horrible first half. They got in a rock fight with, in that game. But at the end of the day, I mean, SMU really couldn't hang. And that was one where I didn't think that they were really ever in doubt against SMU. Andy Katz in his NCAA rankings has them ranked 17th, right behind St. Mary's. ahead of Washington State, ahead of Gonzaga, some of the known schools out there. He says that the Bulls have clinched a share of the American regular season title through a chance to win the league. All they have to do is win one more game, and they've clinched that. So the magic number's one. And he goes, and this is the best line. Please take notice of this amazing story. They've won 13 in a row. Amir Abdul Rahim has got to be considered for the National Coach of the Year for this amazing turnaround. And I would not argue with Andy on any of those points. You've got some beef, okay? You got some beef with the AP college coaches voting, where Purdue finds itself ahead of UConn, and for reasons we can't quite understand.
Yeah, always got to find some kind of beef going on. I'm very happy with the rankings for having our South Florida in there finally. Well deserved, but absolutely, I'm still disgusted, Jim, at the fact that we had this last week where Houston, they've proven it. They've proven themselves. We didn't buy it coming into the season, but they you can't argue with results.
Nope.
Same thing with South Florida.
They deserved it. They deserve it.
Houston deserves the number one rank now, but where the hell do you get off switching UConn and Purdue? Both teams lost on the road this past week. UConn was number one, Purdue was number two for weeks, and we decide, we're actually going to switch those. Purdue belongs number two. They're a bit better than UConn because, losing to crappy Ohio State with a losing conference record is, a much better loss than losing to a ranked Creighton team. So I just, it doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, the Purdue loss was closer if you want to take that into account. But at the same time, the Big Ten is dog crap this year. We thought it was going to be good coming into the season. It's the same old, same old. It's Purdue and everybody else. The East actually has 3 competitive teams in it. So I don't understand how a loss on the road to Creighton, I don't know where you get off putting Purdue ahead of UConn. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
By the way, in Andy Katz's poll of the Power Top 36, he has Creighton at 15th. So not a bad team. But in Andy's Power 36, he has UConn number 2, Purdue number 3. Here's what he says about the Purdue Boilermakers. The Boilermakers crushed Rutgers and they beat down Michigan, but I cannot forgive the loss to Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't understand how that's a worse loss than Creighton. Like I said, it makes no sense to me. Love our boy Andy Katz. He's obviously got it right there. He's been harping on South Florida for a while now with us. He's got the top 3 in the correct order there. So yeah, I totally agree. I don't understand how you can put this Purdue team ahead of this UConn team until we see it, face to face, or one of them takes just a ridiculous loss. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. UConn is still, I would even say UConn is better than Houston still, but Houston deserves the number 1 ranking definitely for now. Absolutely. Yeah. And we're not going to take that away from them because they could have lost to Baylor on the week. That was a tough game. And, they gutted it out. They were
won in overtime.
The whole game. So and that's, again, one they let go and they still came away with the win. And that's, like I said, what great teams do. They find a way to win even when they're not at their best. And so
Iowa State
full credit to them.
Yeah. And Iowa State's no slouch. So,
Oh, definitely.
So you're going to love this. Okay. You're going to love this. Purdue in Andy's poll of the Power 36 is number 3. Okay. The next Big Ten team is Illinois at 14th. So he's got 2 teams that are from the Big Ten in his top 15.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's been a little generous with Illinois. They are a very good team. I don't know if they're, top 15 worthy, but not going to argue too much with Illinois. Like I said, they're a very good team, but they can be streaky at times. We'll have to see. I don't expect big things from them in the tournament when they get there.
I'm looking in 22nd ranking Nebraska. So that's you have 3 Big Ten teams in the top 25 in Andy's power rankings. Northwestern comes in at 28, and that's it. So 4 teams from the Big Ten in the power 36. That's not saying a lot. And we talked about UConn in that Creighton loss. And I said Creighton's rated 15th in the power ranking. So it's not, it ain't a shabby loss, that's for sure. And Ohio State, by the way, isn't even in the top 36.
Ohio State's in the bottom half of the Big Ten, and Creighton's in the top 3 of the Big East. Mm-hmm. But Purdue losing on the road to Ohio State is a better loss than UConn losing on the road to Creighton, according, to the lovely people ranking these teams.
All right, we're gonna go behind the curtain here, and that is the coaches for the most part. Now there are some who are very good at this. There are majority of them, however, do not. This is an SID, Sports Information Directors. Somebody there sits down, fills out the rankings, because you have to rank them 1 through 25, and as you see it, and then you send that ballot in via email. They tally it all up, and they come out with the Associated Press top 25. So that's how they come about it. And as I said before, it's mostly sports information directors. A lot of these coaches and teams don't really see the other conferences. I mean, once conference play starts, they don't pay attention to the other conferences. So, for them to see or be able to evaluate, let's say you got Marquette, right, with Shaka. A lot of times it's the coaches voting for the coaches. I mean, it's like, Marquette, I don't know how good they are, but Shaka's a good guy. So let's give them some love, okay? I'm not taking anything away from Marquette. I'm just saying that sometimes, coaches who don't watch other teams play, watch, the SID comes in and says, okay, here's what do you think? And they'll take a quick look at it and go, it looks fine to me. They may change one in or one out, or put one up a spot or take one down a spot. But anyway, it's crazy, but it's fun and gives us something to talk about. So, they really are not, we're less than a month away from March Madness, and it'll all shake out in the end. It usually does.
Yeah, and you could definitely argue, we're picking at straws here, basically, talking about the number 3 team should be number 2 and the number 2 team should be number 3. Is it going to make a difference in the end? No, they're probably both going to be number 1 seeds somewhere in the tournament. But at the end of the day, it's the kids you're punishing, right? And at some point, that's where it comes in where, it's not what you do, it's who you know. And that's what's hurting the kids, because really the kids at UConn deserve to have that number 2 ranking. And, it's something they never get that respect. They're the defending national champions. They've had a hell of a season, and they got to be sitting there like, what the hell do we have to do to be considered a number 1 team to end the season?
Kawakis, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Purdue might make it 2 rounds, but still could go one and done. Look, any of them could do that. What I've seen of Purdue is they're kind of the usual Big Ten team. We talked about it. They're not as athletic as some of the Big 12 teams. They're certainly not as quick. And so you might be right. You might be right that they could go 2 rounds, make it to a Sweet 16. But Purdue has a tendency to, and this goes back a long way, they have a tendency of disappointing their fans.
That's why
they look
good. We call them Purdon't, right?
Yeah. That's why we like IUPUI, the other Purdue. So yeah, Kawakis, I think certainly a possibility. And thanks for shouting out the congrats to South Florida. I think that this is what makes college basketball fun. There's 68 teams, and you just don't know. You know that UConn's good, Houston's good, but any given time, you never know what's going to happen. Your team may get out on the court and just lay an egg, or they may overlook somebody, and all of a sudden these top tier teams are on the outside looking in. I'll be honest, it doesn't happen often. I mean, we usually get one, maybe two Cinderella stories in the course of a of a tournament, but seldom do we get a total disaster where all of the big name teams are out of it. That you get those bracket busters every once in a while, but not as often as you would think, or hope for that matter.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think this Purdue team's going to get knocked out in the first round. We saw that last year, and
Right.
they've shown in a few spots this year where when it was to get revenge from last year, they definitely show up for the game. So there's no
Right.
way I see this team losing in the first round this year. But absolutely, their inconsistency can hurt them deep into the tournament. And it won't take much for a hot team like a South Florida, or if they have to run into, as you said, Iowa State would probably blow them out of the water. So we'll have to wait and see. But I definitely agree this Purdue team can disappoint.
Yeah, here's another thing to look out for. To Kawakis and everybody else out there. Purdue is going to open as a 1 seed. Okay, so that's a that almost assures them of at worst a trip to the Sweet 16. And because they're the number 1 seed, they get to open closer to the home. So they're going to Indianapolis. Okay, that's not a far trip from campus out to Indianapolis. So they're going to have a lot of home cooking there. It's going to be a lot of fans there going to be there. So, yeah, it's going to be, are they the best team? I don't think so. Amedeus doesn't think so. But can they get to the Sweet 16? It's almost hardwired for them to get to the Sweet 16. The way that they play it for the 1 seeds, they try to keep them close to home. And like it, don't like it, fair, not fair, I don't care. It is the way the NCAA does it. It's the way the NCAA has always done it. So, there it is. You get to... you're number 1 in the in the Midwest, and I believe that whoever finishes first, which could very well be Purdue, it could be Houston, will be the overall number 1 seed, and that means that they're going to play close to home all the way through the tournament.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what this Purdue team does. I mean, obviously, we don't expect great things from them, but I definitely, from what I've seen from this team this year, I don't see them going down to a worse team, to a Cinderella. It's not happening this year. They will show up for those games and bury those teams. It's when they play a good team in the Sweet 16 or maybe the Elite 8, wherever it may be, that they have to run into, a higher seed, not even necessarily a higher seed, maybe just a team that's hot or has gone under the radar all year and dominated the conference. That's the team that's going to take out Purdue in the tournament. It's not going to be the 16 seed, but it's going to be the team that's hot or the team that is really good and Purdue may overlook just because, as you said, they're not athletic. They play that slow pace Big Ten style
basketball.
Yeah, it's they could easily get caught against a faster team.
100%. Now, I've given Houston a hard time, but there's something with Houston that people need to know. Okay, Houston was in the American last year. Okay, they entered the Big 12. They haven't skipped a beat. Houston is just as good, playing in what arguably, along with the Big East, are probably the 2 best basketball conferences in the country. And here you got Houston sitting atop the top 25 with a 24-3 record in the Big 12 conference. The next Big 12 team in the top 10 is 7th, and that's Kansas. And here's the other irony. At 6, you got Arizona. Arizona's going to be in the Big 12 next year.
Yeah. And Arizona, they're not even leading their conference. So go figure. They're number 6, and Washington State is leading the Pac-12 right now.
Yep. And obviously that doesn't mean anything. Kansas, Iowa State, so the Big 12 is 7-8. Carolina makes and Duke make 9 and 10, so that's the Atlantic Coast Conference. We talked about Creighton. Creighton came in at number 12 spot ahead of Illinois of the Big 10, ahead of Alabama of the Southeastern Conference, ahead of Baylor for the Big 10, Kentucky. St. Mary's is ranked 17th. That's not a bad showing for them. Washington State, who's leading the conference in the Pac-12, is 19th. It was nice of them to make the top 25. San Diego State's back. They're at 20. Dayton, the Flyers, another Atlantic 10 team, is at 21. The Mountain West is at 22. Gonzaga, the West Coast. Now, they've got a game coming up here. I don't think close the season with Gonzaga, but St. Mary's and Gonzaga have another game they have to battle. Then, in total irony, 24 is the Florida Gators, and 25 is South Florida. Teams receiving votes, but not making it. BYU leads that pack. Texas Tech is second. Clemson third. TCU fourth. Wake 5. Wisconsin. Then it's Nevada, Colorado State, Arizona State, New Mexico, FAU, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Mississippi State, Washington, Appalachian State, Northwestern, Boise, McNeese, Indiana State, and Loyola Chicago all received votes in this week's poll. So there you go.
I got another 2 beefs right there.
Go ahead.
You said BYU was the first team out of the top 25.
They had most
just
votes
saying
for a team not getting it.
Yeah. Just saying. TCU.
I know what you're saying.
Conference record. TCU has been a better team this year. They have the same, the overall record. So if we're judging by who's done better in the Big 12, which is one of the toughest conferences in the country, well, why are we not judging TCU based off performance? Because just trust BYU is better. I don't understand it. And my other beef, how the hell did Gonzaga sneak in there? What, to get one road win against a Kentucky team that's been inconsistent all season? And now that was just like, that's our excuse. We needed to just slip them in there. We'll hide them in the 20s so no one notices, and we'll just get Gonzaga, make sure they're in there.
You know that I am a Gator fan as well, right?
Yes, of course.
I've never hit that.
That was your football team this year, and then South Florida's our basketball team. Right.
Well, they're one slot ahead of South Florida. And again, I would be arguing that this is the case. I have 5 people who know basketball tell me this is a tournament team. And I'm saying, if it's a tournament team, why are they 19-8? And they can't, they lost to Kentucky. If they're a tournament team, they better start showing it, because right now I don't see it. And they're in the SEC, which, the SEC, Tennessee's, right there at the number 4 spot, but it's not a deep, there's not a deep amount of teams in the SEC that you have to worry about.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Tennessee just regained the lead of the SEC because Alabama lost to Kentucky. Go figure, in this 117-95 game that didn't even go to overtime. So, no defense played in that one. But yeah, it's ridiculous. The SEC is sort of like the Big Ten in the sense where it's not that strong. You have like Tennessee, Auburn. We'll throw Alabama and Kentucky to be nice. But other than that, I guess South Carolina has been a bit of a surprise too. But South Carolina, they lost by 45 on the road to Auburn. So, okay, you have 4 losses this year, but you got absolutely, the doors blown off in one of your conference games. I don't know. And there's a lot of teams in the SEC like that, like Kentucky's inconsistency. It's just, there's a lot of teams where you don't know what to make of them in the SEC because it's okay, great. You have some great wins. You shouldn't have won those games. But then on the other hand, you look at it and shouldn't have lost those games either.
Just saying. It's weird. I mean, it's, Iowa State and Kansas. I mean, they're pretty much the same team, the way they play. And, I guess that's why they're 7-8. I know that Sean's going to be upset about this, but I don't get North Carolina. I just don't. They're not, I think they're the weakest 21-6 team I've seen.
Yeah, look, North Carolina is, they're subject to the same thing South Florida is, right? They got to play who they have to play in their conference. Sure. And, people are taking North Carolina. They're doing the opposite as they're doing with South Florida. They're oh, this team is so great. They're dominating the ACC. Well, the ACC sucks, first of all. Look at Miami. Miami's not even good. That was a team that made the deepest run for the ACC last year in the tournament. Right. So this is not a great conference, really. And what you're seeing, we've talked actually quite a bit about it, how North Carolina is the kind of team where you're getting a false sense of security with, right? Mm-hmm. And that's fine with me. If you want to rank them ninth, they're the best team in the ACC right now, right? The dominating conference. I'm not going to take that away from them. But I totally agree with you. When push comes to shove and we see this team go up against another team from a different conference, they're not that good. I think you're getting a false sense of security with this North Carolina team.
Yeah, and, let's ask from your standpoint, from a wagering standpoint, how much does any of this play into what you set up for the conference tournaments and such?
Yeah, so there's definitely you definitely have to look how a team did in their conference, but you also have to take into account how they did in non-conference games. Now, it is a little tougher because obviously the non-conference is sort of like a preseason. Mm-hmm. Look at South Florida. If you judge them on their non-conference games, you're going to get a very different team than you have now. So you have to take that into account as well. But, there's a lot of teams like St. Mary's has dominated. They've done nothing but dominate the conference since getting there. And this was a team that didn't do well in the non-conference games. And why I think they're different than South Florida, because you could say the same thing. Well, they didn't perform well at the beginning of the season, but now they're heating up. St. Mary's was returning, 3/4 of their team from last year. There's no reason why they should have performed the way they did at the beginning of the season. So that's one thing I'm going to look at. St. Mary's is getting hot now, yes, and they look like they're the best team in the WCC. They could do some damage in the tournament. I'm weary of them making a deep run just because I've seen how they match up against teams from other conferences, and it's not well. And it's a team that the general core stayed the same from last year. So that's one way I would look at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the other part of the equation is that when we see a St. Mary's, which is a fine school, fine team, right? They play as a team. The problem with them is they're not physically capable of making it to Sweet 16 is gonna be tough. They're lucky. They're good, but they're lucky that both the USF, University of San Francisco, in this case, and Gonzaga aren't playing to their levels. I mean, going into the season, San Francisco had a really, a lot of people were liking what San Francisco was doing. They supposed to do, and Gonzaga's had a bad year. Now that I don't mean to be throwing shade on St. Mary's because we both like St. Mary's, but it's tough it's going to be tough for them to go deep in the tournament because of numbers. Basically, I mean, it's just you can't run 6 guys out there and expect to win, tournament games. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, definitely. You need depth on that front. And, I was one of those people who believed in San Francisco at the beginning of the season too, right? Because again, they were a team that got off to such a strong non-conference start. But then you saw how they not necessarily struggled in their conference. They weren't as good as St. Mary's. They weren't the best team in their conference. And unfortunately for San Francisco, when you come from a conference like that, you really have to be the best or you're not going to get a chance at all.
Well, you also have to win games you should win.
Yeah.
And that's where San Francisco didn't have had a tough time. They had a tough time on the non-conference schedule, and then they had a tough time in conference. So, I think overall it's a disappointment that that the Dons weren't better. And, when you hold yourself to that standard and you don't perform, then you can't really bitch about it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what we keep saying. The results matter. Okay, just because BYU might be the better team on paper, the results matter. TCU has been the better team. If you're going to rank them, TCU comes before BYU, right? And just like, you could say, oh, South Florida, they still haven't played anybody. Okay, well, what do you want from them? They can't play anybody else, and they're winning all the games that they're supposed to win. So what more do you want from the team? It makes no sense to me at all.
Don't know what else to say.
Okay, you can say, well, FAU's still better. Okay, they didn't show it, and in a conference like this where you claim you're only going to get a few bids, you got to produce the results. And as far as I'm concerned, there isn't a team in the conference that has produced more results than South Florida. So even if South Florida went on to lose the conference tournament, I don't know how you keep them out. They've done enough to show that they're a tournament team.
Right. Absolutely. And, once they get there, they'll have to prove it.
Yeah.
And that's what I kept saying today. Said it on Twitter all weekend long. I don't expect anybody to give South Florida or St. Mary's or anybody anything. They've earned a spot in that 68 field tournament. What they do once they get there, they have to produce. It's that simple. It's that simple. If you don't produce, then you're gone. And you have no, you can't be angry, right? You can't be angry that your team didn't make it. If you were given the opportunity to make the tournament and then you're one and done. Okay. Just give me a chance to play in the tournament. We'll figure out what to do later. At this point in time, they're not getting that, benefit of the doubt. And we're going to see, come on, we said it before. There are teams that aren't going to deserve being in there, even with 68, and BYU might very well be one of them. TCU, BYU is a stunner, okay, from the get-go. No one in the conference thought BYU was even, remotely going to be this good.
Yeah, and look, honestly, there should be a rule. I know, obviously, you weight the conferences different, and the big conferences are going to get, 6 bids, whatever it may be, depending on the conference. But there's got to be a rule where if you have a losing record in your conference play, you shouldn't be eligible for the tournament at all. Because these people who have Texas in their bracket, newsflash, Texas is a trash team. They're bad. They are a bad team. Firing Chris Beard was the biggest mistake they ever made there. And they've done nothing but go downhill since that incident happened last year. So that's all I'm going to say about Texas. Anybody who still has Texas in their bracket makes no sense to me. They got a losing record in the conference. They're in the bottom half of the Big 12. They're not doing anything this year. They don't have enough games to turn things around. They're not a good team. And if Texas gets into the tournament, that just shows me that's an undeserving team getting in over maybe a mid-major or an even smaller school that probably deserved to be there.
100%. And you're sitting there going, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, just to watch lose in the first round in the as like, a 10 seed or whatever. Like, okay, lose
Right.
to the 7 seed. You don't even belong there in the first place.
It's crazy. It is 100% crazy. But that's what makes college basketball, and this fall college football, where we have 12 teams, a lot of fun, from that standpoint. But we'll have to see how it plays out, and we're going to find out sooner as opposed to later. Anything else over the weekend that excited you?
Yeah, I mean, there was tons of soccer going on. Obviously, we had the MLS was back in full force. There was a few good games there. If you caught that, there was obviously the LAFC Seattle game that I talked so much about. LAFC did come away with the win 2-1, but they were at home, and I'm not gonna judge them off that one performance and say LAFC is still here. We'll see what they do throughout the season, but. Yeah, there's definitely some good matchups. I was focused a lot on the college basketball. I mean, that's the time of year, right, Jim? Now it's time to get into March Madness, the tournaments. I'm excited for what's to come. Definitely a lot of good smaller schools this year that I'm excited to see what they do.
Right, and we're not that far away from spring training, and I'm sorry, the start of the Major League Baseball season. Kind of interesting, funny controversy, and that is about the new Nike uniforms that they're when they start you can see through, and that's kind of crazy. And Shohei Ohtani this week will get his major league debut as a Dodger. So something to look forward to as we get closer and closer to first pitch for the 2024 Major League Baseball season. I don't know though if you do. I pay zero attention, but this week is the NFL Combine, and there will be rumors, and there will be all kinds of crazy that happens during the combines, and there'll be guys who have decided, well, we're going to go to the combine, and then they go, well, maybe not. So that we always have that. Some last minute guys who who you're looking for has decided, maybe I don't go to the combine. Maybe I just do a pro day, at my university. So to keep a
Yeah.
lookout for that.
Obviously, Caleb Williams decided not to go to the combine. Big surprise. That just tells me he's got no confidence in himself. He knows he's not the best quarterback, and he's afraid of not going number one. So what? You don't want your stock to drop. So that's what that. When I see that, I just look at that and I go, all right. He's one that he cares about going number one so badly, even though he doesn't deserve it. But I'm with you, Jim. I probably won't be watching the combine. I mean, does it really matter at this point? I'm just waiting for draft day to see where all the pieces fall in place.
Watching linemen run the 40 is not fun.
Highlight of my weekend, Jim. What do you mean? That's
put that sorry, on record. I didn't know. I'm sorry.
Put that stuff on record. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to break down, and the famous vertical leap, which my feelings about that.
He won't be a good quarterback. He can't jump,
but he can rebound.
Can't jump. Nope. Need that.
Or maybe he's a good wide receiver because he can go. You can throw the point of the ball high. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. I mean, but I think honestly, and this happens sometimes in the Caleb Williams thing. I mean, he's no longer, he's no longer. He can be contacted by an NFL team, and perhaps Chicago, Washington, whomever, reached out to his team and said, wouldn't be a bad idea if Caleb didn't go. It's happened before, and perhaps that's what happened. Or maybe, as you say, Caleb just didn't want to expose himself from a standpoint of being not necessarily the best quarterback in that, at the combine. Because there's a lot of stuff in the combine that you do that is not quarterback related.
Yeah, I know, right? And then everybody makes a big deal of
Right.
your wingspan and your hand size, how
That's Kenny
high
Pickett, yeah.
and far you can jump. Apparently, it matters in the
Right.
sport.
It's you're drafting Superman. Okay, I don't get it, but I do know that if I'm Caleb, maybe I'm not so excited about maybe I'll say I'm going and then not, and maybe he holds a pro day out at at USC, or maybe he doesn't even have to. Maybe he just says,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm going to sit there, and people will take me or they won't.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And
Yeah.
if you really need your football fix,
Yep.
you don't need the combine. Rest assured, we have a lovely new sport that's gaining a lot of steam. It's actually not new. It's been around for quite a while. But
Okay,
it's,
what's
it's
that?
just starting to get popular. You may have seen the videos, Jim. But if you really need your football fix this weekend, I see that they're doing this new American football on ice.
Oh
And
my God!
I believe that
I saw a YouTube video about it.
I believe the proper name for the league is actually the AIF. It's American Ice Football. And I did look into it myself. Believe it or not, it wasn't even invented in the United States. It is actually, those videos you see are supposedly a league in Germany that has been running for over a year.
I saw that. That's wild.
Yeah, so apparently the NFL in Germany worked. Because ever since they had their first game, whatever was 2 years ago or whatever
2 years
it was,
ago, yeah.
they've been so entranced by the sport, they put their own little spin on it and said, you know what? Let's play it in a hockey arena on a rink with no skates. Put our own little touch. People are falling all over the place, but they got them dressed up like you'd have, your kid if they played novice hockey or whatever,
Right.
with the cage helmets, and they got all like the hockey equipment that you can imagine. And
Right.
it looks like an interesting. This might be the new pickleball, Jim.
Could be. Let me, as someone who played hockey, not me, you. Does it ever? I mean, the bottoms of those skates are sharp. I wouldn't necessarily want to play tackle anything when I'm on skates. Or am I just being, naive about that?
No, you're absolutely right. So they don't actually play this on skates. They're actually running on the ice with their shoes.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, that's why
I
you see they're
couldn't
kind of like running a little funny, because
Yeah.
as somebody who played hockey, I can definitely tell you it takes a tremendous amount of muscles in your leg to keep your balance when you're on shoes on the ice. It is very hard, or it is very easy to slip. And just to keep like a running motion like that, it takes a lot. So these are definitely some skilled athletes playing this game, even though we get a good laugh of it. 100% the skilled athletes. And I think it was smart, obviously, to take the skates out, as you said. That they probably looked at that as a safety concern.
They probably
for
could
sure.
get insurance, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But, you take that away, it makes the game a little more entertaining, because, it doesn't take much. The other thing, right, is you really mitigate the size of hits you can take, because it's not going to take much to bring someone down when they're running on the ice with shoes, especially at the higher speed they're going. All you really got to do is tap them, and they might just slip. And as long as they have, the proper headgear and stuff, might be a little safer, tackling wise, just because you can really avoid the big hits. And I guess you could still crush someone against the boards, but even then, the boards kind of stops your momentum, right? We've seen it many times in hockey. Obviously they won't have the players there on the bench to catch it if they go over, but yeah, it's an interesting sport. We'll have to keep tabs on it, Jim, for sure.
Yep, we'll keep an eye on it. Speaking of keeping an eye on something, what's going on with you today? On we've got all the fun stuff that can be done in our show box, and I'm sure you got something going on today.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. had a bit of a rough week, but finally bounced back. Yesterday, I had a 3-0 day in college basketball. Wasn't a great weekend on the pitch for me, but looking to bounce back today. I got a Premier League play that you can buy. It starts in 10 minutes. And I also have 2 plays in Argentina for this afternoon that you can get, as well as just the 1 college basketball. And that's all for tonight. So make sure you go check that out.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. There's a lot of different leagues right now for soccer.
Not a bad thing. All right. So tomorrow, here's the deal. Amedeus is going to be here. I'll pop on for a few minutes and just, tell you what's going on. And then we'll be back together on Wednesday. So Amedeus is on assignment. I'll just be here tomorrow, but we'll have some fun. And I promise it will go 15 minutes probably. So there you go, boys and girls. And any final thoughts, Amedeus, before we get out of here on a sunny, actually, Monday afternoon?
Yeah, as the great Rye Cape would say, let's cash some tickets.
Yep. And we'll give that to Rye. All right, everybody. Have a good day. And, it's been fun. And we shall see you again. I'll be here tomorrow. Amedeus and I'll be here on Wednesday. Take care.